All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Meaning Forge. I have a special guest with me today, Captain Dadpool, who has risen to TikTok fandom over the past year, along with a few other people, by posting atheist content. I know him by tackling on a question of who was Jesus Christ. And he gives a great breakdown of almost like four different Jesuses who lived in and around the same time frame. Very informative, very, very interesting, and I would encourage anyone to look at that. He is also starting up his own YouTube channel. He's starting it up, and he's holding interviews, and there will be many great interviews to come. And then on top of that, he has a regular appearance on TART, the Atheist Roundtable with Oz. We've all met Oz in a previous interview, and Captain Dadpool and a few other people from TART will be coming on the show in the future. And I must say, it's been an honor to work with them. Before we begin, make sure you comment, you like, and subscribe, and share this video with anyone who you think is relevant to share it with, right? The idea is to create a library of experience so that way everybody can grow together, help find meaning, help make meaning, and I don't care what walk of life you come from, okay? I want you on this show. I want to have a conversation with you. I want to find how you make meaning and how you embody the symbology of the Meaning Forge here and, well, live a meaningful life. So without any further ado, let's get into it. So, from one pirate to another, literally as you were just getting after it, man. I got my Blackbeard shirt on, and because I'm from the Carolinas, I'm a huge pirate fan. I went to East Carolina University. Go Pirates!
Oh, okay.
I bleed purple and I bleed gold, and I'm a huge fan of Blackbeard. I have 10 of his flags. It's kind of like an army thing for me. I know you're an army vet too. We'll get into that. So I'll be drinking rum tonight.
So real quick, I'm drinking rum as well, but I grew up in Hampton, Virginia, which every year has a Blackbeard festival, and the mayor is in possession of Blackbeard's skull. It is like the literal Blackbeard, the historical Blackbeard, his skull, and he shows it every year. And there is a cell that you can go to and visit at your leisure. In close to Virginia Beach or Yorktown, Virginia.
Okay, I love that area, and also I think Hampton College is out there, and yes. their mascot's a pirate as well.
Yes, the pirate theme is very, very common in that area.
It's something about the East Coast and the graveyard of the Atlantic, which is pretty much the Atlantic. But I would challenge you to do is that the real Blackbeard? And who was Blackbeard video? That would be fun. It might break it up a little bit.
That would be fun. They claim it's his actual skull, and he was imprisoned there until he died. And
there's some claims there. I mean, you got to go through it. So real quick, I just want to talk to you a little bit about TikTok and your journey with TikTok so far, because that's probably the major social media platform that you are using.
Yeah, that's primarily where you can find me on TikTok. I'm at Captain Dadpool 86. From there, if you go in my bio, there's a link tree where my Instagram and my Twitter and my Discord are on there as well. But I'm primarily on TikTok. I downloaded TikTok like so many other people during the beginning of the quarantine, just for funsies. And I started making videos, at my whimsical, and I responded to a video one day where someone said, if you were a Christian and are now an atheist, what caused you to leave your faith? Now, I was a dedicated Christian, and I went to college to become a pastor, and I received my bachelor's degree in biblical theology, but I became an atheist because of the education I received. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty much what I said on the TikTok, and it went viral. And I got a ton of followers overnight and the next day, and a couple of other videos I made responding to questions I was getting went viral, and now I'm up to 300,000 followers. And I joined TikTok in November, so about what 6 months, I've gained 300,000 followers. So I'm blown away. I don't know what to do. Like, this is weird. It's been an interesting journey. It's not something I expected. It's not something I tried for. I just did it for fun, and well, here we are.
You did it for fun, and probably what at some level was meaningful to you, in more ways than one, right? Because I mean, it's something that you hold, that, as we'll see, that we hold, near and dear to your heart. So yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. I prefer genuine content. Generally speaking, right?
Sure.
And genuine is normally always good. And so just want to, it's funny because when we were kind of doing our pre-discussion here, I must say that I have our first resident blacksmith come on to the Meeting Forge.
Mm-hmm.
He educated me on the fact that my hammer is wrong. That's okay. It's okay, because I needed something. It was 3D. I said, this is what I got. So it's a hammer's a hammer. But he laid it out for me. Like, what's the difference between a forging hammer, a war hammer, a construction hammer, which is really what that one is. And it was really helpful. So, but would you like to share some of your work you got there?
Yeah. So, like you asked, like, is Thor's hammer actually made for warfare? And I was like, no, Thor's hammer is made for forging. There's a difference. Like, Thor's hammer, the surfaces are flat. It's made for shaping the steel. A war hammer will be more curved, as made for like a smaller surface area, made for like punching through the skull. So like I have a knife here that I forged. I don't know how you can see it.
It's pretty awesome.
But yeah, like you want a flat hammer to hammer into the bevels of this edge. A curved hammer doesn't really have won't really do much in making a weapon. So yeah, Thor's hammer is made for forging, not for warfare. All that to say. That's
something that we're gonna have to really kind of dive into, because for me, I always like to ask, are we using the tools the appropriate way? And one of those is like in this, I think this came out in our conversation too. Like, is the hammer, like, he could have built bridges versus just run around and destroy stuff, right? And when he built bridges, or the Bifrost, right? As the common for both, that is in the mythology.
Accurate.
But he potentially couldn't even need Bran the Builder, I think that was his name, to build the wall to protect the Aesir in that story. Like, and then of course you have the Rise of Hell in that one, and Sleipnir and all. It's a great story. I would highly recommend you guys look into Norse mythology. It's really good. We're going to kind of transition really quick into your story, like your life story as to right now. I'm going to give you the screen. You can kind of talk about the important things that have gone on in your life, from however young you want to be to to wherever you are now. Just like, it's not complete. The Meaning Forge is life at the end of the day, and it's an open-ended story, and the only way, and we'll get into this later, the only way that it really ends is when you're dead. And so I'll leave that open to you. We'll do a quick transition, and you'll be on the solo screen, just telling your story.
My body is ready.
Yes. All right.
All right. So I grew up, my parents divorced when I was 3. My dad was a military member. My mom got full custody of me. I didn't see my dad very often. I grew up, I had mild exposure to like religion. Went to church with like my grandma and my aunt every now and then. I had like a basic idea. In high school, I was invited to a youth group when I was 15, and I became hooked. I was a awkward, weird teenager. I didn't have a lot of friends. I was kind of starved for social acceptance. So I went to this church, this youth group. It was very edgy. It was actually called The Edge. It had a live band. It had strobe lights. It had a fog machine. It had like a snack bar. And I was just like beyond anything I had expected church to be. So I kept, and everyone there was like so excited to have me there. Like, oh, thank you for coming on. We're so glad to have you here. And it made me feel welcome. So I kept going, and I became Christian officially and baptized, and I joined the worship band. I joined the drama team. Eventually I went on to perform at a fine arts festival, it's called, and I did street evangelism and missions trips to like LA and the Dream Center and a homeless ministry. I went to a Ray Comfort and Kirk Cameron like street evangelism conference. Like I did everything you can pretty much imagine as a Christian. I became very obsessed, and I became recognized by elders in my church as standing head and shoulders above my peers, as modestly as I can say. I had elders in my church come to me and say, God has spoken to me and told me that he has a plan for you, and he has a call for ministry on your life. I was like, okay, all right. So I went to college. I went to a Bible college for 2 years. I couldn't afford to continue after those 2 years, and I became homeless. And then an elderly couple from my church like accepted me in their home, and then I joined the Army. As again, my dad was in the military, so he told me join the military. So I said, okay. So I joined the Army as an infantryman. Went in my first year. I was deployed to Iraq. I was there for a year. It experienced some of the darker side of life that the average person would not be exposed to, shall we say. After that, I got out. And I had the GI Bill, and I wanted to finish my degree. I was still a Christian. I had a lot of issues, a lot of criticisms, but I was still a Christian and still wanted to fulfill the ministry or the calling on my life. So I went to another Bible college and was there for 4 years. I pretty much had to start all over for different reasons. And I graduated. And throughout my education, I'd learned one of the first things you're told in Bible college is forget everything you've ever learned. Like everything you've been taught in church is wrong. And they were like, the Gospels were not written by eyewitnesses. We have no idea who wrote the Gospels, but they definitely weren't written by eyewitnesses. There were no eyewitness accounts of Jesus existing or doing anything that he did. And I was just like, hold on, what? For 10 plus years, I had been told that Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were authors of the Gospels because they were eyewitnesses to, everything that Jesus did. And now I'm hearing from professors with doctorates saying, yeah, that's all a lie. So I had a lot of issues with that. And basically one belief kind of fell after the other. Like I stopped believing in hell, like the literal interpretation of hell as a place of eternal torment. I stopped believing in that. And then I stopped believing in God's omniscience. And then I stopped believing in prayer. And yeah, like one belief kind of fell after the other. And at one point, I literally in my car, I cried out to God. I was like, God, I need you to show me in some way that you're here for me because I'm going through something and I'm about to stop believing in you. I need you to show me in some way that you're here for me. And as soon as I asked that question, the silence I heard was the loudest noise I could have ever imagined. And I started to think maybe God was never there in the first place. Maybe I had just been taught that God was there. I had been indoctrinated into this ideology. So I basically stopped believing in God. And I became an atheist. And I was sort of like a closet atheist for like 2 or 3 years. I still went to church. I still went through the motions because I was involved in a church. I still played the bass guitar in a worship band at another church. And yeah, I was involved. I was going through the motions, but I was going through this internal struggle. But yeah, once I had that experience, I kind of gave it all up and became full-blown atheist. And yeah, here I am, TikTok's most popular atheist for some fucking reason.
No one knows why. It just happened.
Yeah, TikTok's
no
algorithm.
special trending backgrounds, no nothing. Just genuine content from a genuine person.
Yeah, like TikTok's algorithm is locked up like Coca-Cola's recipe. Like nobody knows how it works or anything. Yeah. So I kind of like accidentally stumbled upon something, I guess. And yeah, I got really popular really fast, and I was not expecting that.
How I guess again, like if there's any question that you just choose not to answer, something that's fine. Like I completely understand, because these are personal interviews. I guess how has your relationship with your family changed through your faith deconstruction as well? Like, does that make sense? Is that a
yeah, absolutely. I get that question a lot, and I don't really have a lot to contribute to that. Like my family, like my mom and my dad, who have been divorced since I was 3 years old, like they believe in God, but they're not really practicing Christians. So I kind of dodged that bullet. I didn't deal with like the rejection that a lot of people deal with. And believe me, I get a lot of like messages about like, hey, my family is going to kick me out of the house and leave me homeless because I don't believe in God. What do I do? I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. I'm not a counselor. I'm not qualified to give advice on those things. I'm just a guy who makes TikTok videos.
No, absolutely.
But like, yeah, that happens very frequently, but that's a bullet I managed to dodge.
Yeah. What's it like? I mean, what's your family life? I guess on your like your personal level, been kind of like your wife I know you have kids. How's that been changing and evolving through your journey so far?
Yeah, I have an ex-wife. She and I were married for 9 years since we were teenagers, and we divorced because reasons I don't want to get into.
That's fair.
Yeah, and but it didn't really have anything to do with me leaving the church or her leaving the church. But it did happen at the same time as me leaving the church. Again, there's a lot.
There's a lot there.
Yeah,
I understand.
But I have full custody of our 3 kids. And there's a reason for that. And I started seeing someone who likewise has full custody of 1 kid who is now my stepson. who likewise his father is not involved in his life. So we're a very blended family. I have 3 kids that she has taken in. She has 1 kid that I has taken in as my own. And again, when the quarantine hit and we had them in daycare, we were both working. We had them in daycare. Daycare shut down. So we had to make a decision. Someone has to stay home 24/7. And I was like, okay, I'll do that. Like my girlfriend, soon to be wife, is very career driven. She's a very promising future in her field. And we worked together in the same field. So I was like, okay, I'll quit. And I'll stay at home, take care of the kids, take care of the house, all that. Like, it made finances very tight. Things got pretty dodgy for a while there, but it's kind of what we had to do. So, yeah. I'll show up my shadow box.
Oh, heck yeah.
It's not much, but
that's all you need.
Yeah, there's my ribbons. I'm currently a sergeant. I have an expert for
So as anyone as anyone who is in the service, and like you and I can talk about this in a lot of ways as an NCO, how was that? How was the service and being a leader contributed to your life so far?
It's weird because I was before I even went to college, but when I was active duty, I was a team leader. When you come back from a deployment, a lot of people leave your unit, and then you get a whole bunch of new people straight from basic training. And in our case, and a lot of other times, an entire platoon will disappear. And then once we get those new recruits in straight from basic training, a new platoon will open up. I was part of that platoon. So I was there from the ground up. We were called the Reapers, and I was made a team leader, and I designed the logo because I'm an artist. And I had these all these soldiers fresh out of basic training, like, okay, you have to train them. So I did that, and when it came time for me, at the end of my contract, I met with a retention NCO who was like, okay, what do you want in order to re-enlist? And I was like, I want to go to Schofield Barracks in Hawaii. It's like, that's where I want to go. Either that or Fort Drum, North Carolina, because that was the closest to my hometown. And they said, Fort
Drum, North Carolina, or Fort Drum?
Fort Drum. No, Fort Bragg. Fort Bragg. Sorry, you're right. Fort Bragg. I get Fort Bragg and Fort Drum mixed up because I go to Fort Drum for AT a couple of times.
Okay.
But yeah, Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And they were like, everything is needs of the Army right now. We can't promise you that. So they're like, but what we can say is, I was E4 at the time. They're like, we will promote you and we will send you to sniper school if you re-up and stay here and deploy to Afghanistan with us. And I was like, nah, I'm good. I'm good. So I
hard sell.
I was like, I just got home from Afghanistan or from Iraq, and now you want me to go Afghanistan? I'm good. I'm good. That was no fun. I'm good. So I declined that offer. And went into what's called the IRR, or inactive reserve. And for all intents and purposes, you're a civilian, but if shit hits the fan, you could be called up. So I was allowed to use my GI Bill. I was essentially a civilian for 4 years, and then I, on my own free will, joined the National Guard because I kind of
gotcha.
I got bit by the bug. I missed it. I had kids at the time. I wanted them to see me in my uniform and be an inspiration to them. So I re-upped for 6 years, and I have a year left, by the way. So where was but yeah, it's been an interesting journey because I was I'm located in Pennsylvania, when the George Floyd riots happened in Philadelphia, I was deployed to that. And I spent like 2 weeks there. And then when the insurrection happened at the Capitol, I was deployed to that for 2 weeks. So I got to see both sides, which is a very interesting perspective that most people don't get to have.
Yeah, I mean, you were in history being made, and in some regards, which is really awesome in a lot of ways. So yeah, I can appreciate that. That's really cool. I mean, I don't want to get like, by no means like, are we going to get political or anything like that? But but it's what did you? I said it again. What did you learn? Maybe from those experiences. What were some like big moments for you, if any?
That's an interesting question. I think a lot of people, or most people, do not understand what is actually going on. Whenever a major event happens, everyone kind of mans their battle stations. Everyone flocks to their side.
Mm-hmm.
And then they defend it at all costs. And very few people sit down and say, okay, what's really going on here? So it's a very reactionary response. And it became increasingly aware to me that most people don't understand what's really going on here. So like, case in point, when I was in DC, one of my friends or battle buddies came up to me and he showed me a video from TikTok that said, hey, there's all these soldiers who have turned their backs to Joe Biden's caravan. And he was like, oh, that's so awesome. Like, fuck him. Like, all that shit. I'm not trying to get political. I'm not trying to get political.
This is a story. This is from your experience. That's fine.
Yeah, this is my story. And he was like, they all turned their backs to him. I was like, okay, hold on. If they turn their back, that was at the command of their lieutenant. That lieutenant would lose his job for making that command. And that video is clearly older than what's going on now. Like, that was just that was not what you're claiming it to be. So I'm like, there's more to what is going on here than you think. And that's a very overarching theme. There's so much more than what we see on, like, you can see a TikTok video or a YouTube or Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, whatever. Like, there's so much more that's going on than you understand. But people are just so like, I see this and I'm going to make a judgmental reaction according to this and nothing else. I'm not going to look deeply into the background of what's happening here. I'm just going to react. So that's something that I started to realize is no one's interested in delving into the origins or backgrounds of what's actually happening here. People just want to get emotional. They just want to react. They just want to man their battle stations and fight for something. Not sure where I was going with that. Sorry.
No. I think I'm picking up what you're putting down. Like, it's like this idea that, and correct me if I'm wrong, right? But like, don't be so quick. Like take a chill pill. Try to understand a little bit more what's going on, because clearly, like, some of these things have agendas, and you're not going to get a full picture of what's going on with a minute video. Our favorite phrase, like, in context, right? Things matter in context.
Oh yeah.
That's an inside joke because many theists, including myself, in conversations on the Atheist Roundtable, always say, "Well, you got to remember context. Context matters." Yeah. But anyway, so I mean, so far, I think your life, like, it's really interesting. Like, you've kind of built yourself up to where you are. Like, you're still getting through stuff. I mean, COVID, the quarantine. Dealing with the political climate, dealing with a slew of other things, dealing with I would say actually not dealing with, but taking on responsibility to, is educate the right word? Or educate or lead in some ways, people like, hey, like maybe we should apply some background, some context to some of these things, right? So like just because like here's Jesus, right? And I'm kind of alluding to this video you've made. Here's Jesus, but there's like 4 other Jesuses that have been referenced, and all in, like, within a 200 year framework between what is it, 100 BC and not 100 BC, but whatever the case may be, to 180.
Right.
And so, I mean, there's more to the world than meets the eye. Be very careful of that. So I think that's reasonable. So we'll go ahead and transition into the hammer now, and kind of start talking about where you are, how you've made yourself, a little bit more detail, and kind of start connecting the pieces of your identity together. So we've already established that I have the wrong hammer. But that wasn't the wrong hammer. We've also established that it's combining different aspects of yourself, right? Mm-hmm. So how do you think things have kind of combined into what you are today? Like things have kind of manifested both willfully, and we'll start there. Like things you had to willfully manifest, and things that just kind of revealed themselves as you took on these adventures and as you made your masterpiece.
Oh gosh. So I'd say, as after being such a devout Christian, and receiving my bachelor's degree in biblical theology because I wanted to be a pastor, and then losing my faith and becoming an atheist because of the education I received, that kind of forced me into a sort of very untrusting, sort of critical, calloused kind of person. Anything anyone told me, I was skeptical to believe, because I had been told for so long, these things are true. This is true. That's true. These things are true. And then I go to college and talk to actually scholars, and they tell you, hey, none of those things are true. Mm-hmm. Your church has been lying to you all this time. So I had a very untrusting, nature about me. And then, I kind of moved forward with that, and I was just very cautious to trust anyone or anything that was taught to me. And that's kind of where I am today. Anything anyone tells me, I take with a grain of salt. Even from atheists, they're like, hey, this passage actually means this, and like, doesn't really. Sorry, I'm kind of rambling now. I'm not really sure where I'm going.
No, you're good, man. So I mean, like it's kind of like this idea, like, so like you've had these experiences, education kind of like took the rug out from underneath, right? And so like there's one aspect that you're kind of making come together, right? Well, I guess what have been like some of the other things that kind of come into that, right? So like we've talked about your experience with I had to take down a few notes, right? Your experiences at the Capitol with George Floyd, also your life. So I mean, what are some other things that maybe you pulled in that are materials, maybe outside that education, we'll call it the education aspect.
Yeah. So like, even before I officially became an atheist, like I said, I deployed to Iraq. I was there for a year as an infantryman, and I saw things that most people would not see. I have 2 friends on my wrist who did not did not return home, and I did. And there were several instances where I could have very easily not returned home either. So that kind of brought a new perspective for me that most people don't have. And that, coupled with the education I received, and then when I was going through with my divorce to someone who God had ordained me to marry, falling apart, and everything just started, crumbling to pieces at once. And I was like, what is even happening here? None of this makes sense. Why would God orchestrate all of these things to be falling apart and impacting me in a very intellectual and emotional way? But what, to increase my faith? Like that doesn't make any sense. It made more sense to think that maybe God isn't real and everything is just chaotic. Like nothing happens. Like that made more sense. Like my life, my experiences in my life is chaos. Nothing is predictable. Nothing is ad hoc. Nothing is, I don't know if I said that right. Nothing makes any sense for an omniscient, omnipotent God to orchestrate. So like it makes more sense for there to not be a God, and everything just kind of happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get that. And so like you have some of these materials and it's and let me know if I'm off here, but it's kind of like, it's almost like you're like active, like not only like are you the blacksmith, but you're also like actively in the forge right now. Like that's really like if we were to kind of break this down in like a phase of your life, you're back in the forge, swinging the hammer, trying to bring things together to have a more meaningful life. Is that a kind of like an accurate statement?
Yeah, that's a very accurate analogy. Like, where is it? Even in the Bible, it says something about being forged, it's about the clay.
There's a bunch of different references in the Bible.
yeah, but still, it's like, but yeah, I feel like I was being molded and shaped into something different than I previously was. Because as a teenager, I thought I had all the answers, as you typically do as a teenager. You think you're the shit. You think you know everything. And then you become an adult and you realize you don't actually know anything. So that's kind of, right? So that's kind of where I was. Like I went to Bible college thinking I'm going to ace this shit. I know the Bible so well. I've had people prophesy over me, tell me that I've known the Bible better than anybody they've ever met, and God has this divine calling in my life. And I go to Bible college thinking I'm going to wreck this shit. I'm going to graduate 4.0, no problem. And I get there and they're like, forget everything you've ever learned.
Yeah.
So it's like it was a very shocking experience, especially since I did 2 years of college before I joined the military, and returned 4 years of college after I went to war.
Transfer credits.
Yeah. So I was a 22-year-old in college surrounded by these 18-year-olds. And I was like, none of y'all know shit. You don't know anything. And even I don't know anything. So, and the more I learned, the more I realized I didn't know. So to me, it's like, it's arrogant to say I know something, because the more you learn, the less you realize you know.
Agreed. And I think it's interesting because it's like, so, I mean, sometimes like this is I love to get your take on this, but sometimes when you go in the world and like you've made yourself a little bit, or you think you've made yourself, right? You're quickly humbled because you realize the material that you made whatever X with turned out to be the wrong material. It's not as strong as it needs to be, or it's whatever the case may be. The material was bad. And it's just one of those things that like I always run into, and I guess what have been, I guess, the materials that maybe you put into the forge aren't exactly right, like that you made your first sword with. Beyond education, and I'm almost thinking it's like, this is me, right, listening. Like I think it's almost like a symptom of the education. So like I have this education and now I'm arrogant, and that's just an example. I don't know if that's the complete example. Maybe if you can elaborate on that.
No, that makes sense. If you, as a blacksmith, dealing, that's what I was going with, deal with high carbon steel. When you quench a knife, okay, you heat it up to 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, and then you quench it, usually in oil. If you quench it in water, chances are it's going to break. You're going to stick a knife that is red hot steel in water, it's going to just shatter into pieces. If you dunk it in oil, it might be okay, but it also might break as well. What you're supposed to do is heat up the oil to 120 degrees and then quench it. That's the perfect temperature to temper a blade.
So it's almost like it's a procedural thing. Like it's not necessarily like a material thing. It's like a bad procedure that came together, and the product is now bad because of it. It's like a quality issue, essentially.
Exactly right. If you don't do it right, you're going to, or if you don't do it right, you're going to ruin all the progress you've made so far. Because even forging a knife or a sword or whatever up to that point takes hours and hours of work, not to mention the cost of the steel that you've purchased. And you dunk it in that water and it breaks into a bunch of pieces, it's ruined. You lost all that money. Yeah. So if you don't do it right, you're going to suffer.
So do you think, and again, this is just kind of based off of kind of what I'm picking up here. And again, like I'm not, this is your life and stuff like that. So like, I just want to say this. Do you think that your journey and people like kind of like setting you up, because I think that's kind of one of those underlying things, right? There's people like prophesying over you saying you're going to be this, and like was a procedural flaw, to say the least.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it. I think I was set up for failure in a sense, because even, and you're very good at that, by the way, because I have ADD and my brain jumps all over the place.
Mine does too. Don't do that.
And I can't keep track of it most of the time. So what you said is very helpful. All these people saying that God has a plan for you and you're supposed to do this and you're supposed to do that. It definitely had an impact on me and gave me these preconceived notions that this is what I'm supposed to do. This is my life. This is the plan that God has for me. So I went into this with all these preconceived notions, and then I realized it's all bupkis. These people whom I respected as elders, as wiser than me, as more knowledgeable than me, they quenched me in water when they were supposed to quench me in oil. Right?
So I guess just I think this is the last question. Then we'll kind of move on to the sword a little bit because the procedure, because I think we can talk about this a lot more. There's a lot more to this, and it's very very difficult to parse out. That even I don't think just doing it like a hammer.
Well, hold on. Let me say really quick even before I went, when I told my the ones that I respected, my peers, elders, whatever, when I told them I am going to Bible college, I'm going to pursue ministry, they told me, be careful. Bible college will either make or break your faith. I was told that multiple times by different people. Yeah. Which should have been a red flag. But to me, I was like, I'm not worried. I've got the Holy Spirit. I know the Bible very well. I'm not scared. Yeah. Well, now here I am, an atheist.
Procedural. Yeah. JK, LOL, because it's funny because I'm a theist, so I get to kind of make I'm
go for it.
A little joke here and there. So I guess what I'm looking at is I'm trying to figure out. So you there's a procedural flaw in making who you are, and I'm trying to figure that out. I don't have to revisit that because there's something else there that I can't wrap my head around right now. But that's okay. That's okay.
Are you trying to figure out like how I got from point A to point B, or?
No, I'm trying to. I think this is probably more sword related, right? Because and the reason why I said is because like it's you have this, and then all of a sudden like something happens, and now you're starting to carry yourself forward, right? Like you're acting out something. Like you're trying the best with what you've got, and that's the sword thing. So we're going to just transition to the sword. So we've been talking about you forging your identity, you forging yourself, and kind of this, instead of a material thing, which is what I love about these interviews, it's a procedural thing. So you kind of like enlightened me on kind of how I can perceive this. And there's a procedural flaw, and it's probably it's something related to people projecting or people seeing potential in the wrong way and not fostering a potential on like that's for you, for example, for Captain Dadpool. And so now you have this sword that you've made in your life, and we already established you're back in the forge, trying to make everything to come back together again. So with this sword that you have, how are you empowering yourself to be better? How are you remaining confident in building in using what you have to propel yourself forward?
Good question. So I think this pertains to my sudden, unexpected TikTok fame. I was an atheist for like 2 or 3 years before I joined TikTok. I had tried to get involved with some like over the phone counseling in regards to like religious trauma when relieving a faith, but never really panned out. I just had other things going on in my life. But I started making the TikToks, and with the TikToks came a bunch of like direct messages of people saying, "Hey, I'm experiencing this. How do I deal with this?" And I would either give them my advice if I could, or if it was like beyond my capabilities, I would direct them to their source. Like I had someone say, I recently discovered that I'm homosexual, and I have 2 kids with my wife. My wife wants me to get more involved with the church, even though I'm an atheist, and she thinks that if I get closer to Jesus, I will stop being gay, and then we'll be all right. What do I do? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm not, I'm not trained for this shit. So learning how to deal with all of these questions was a struggle, and I responded as best I could. But at some point, I had to disable my DMs. Like on TikTok, my DMs are only available to for mutual friends. At first, for a while, they were available to everybody. Everybody could message me. And I spent a lot of time responding to those DMs. Like, people would send me a laundry list of questions, and I would spend hours responding to one single person, and it became a drain on my mental health. And I realized, all right, I need to stop doing this because I am an empath by nature, and I feel like I am responsible for this person's emotional growth. So I had to draw like a boundary, and I had to like disable, those DMs. That was a very hard decision for me. It doesn't seem like a big deal for most, but for me, it was a huge deal, and it made me very like sad to do it. But this whole process has taught me how to better care for my own mental health. Like, I am who I am. I am going to make the content that I want to make. And I'm not going to stress myself out over what other people want me to do. So I think that is the way I have been forged to stay true to the analogy. And at some point I had to say, fuck all of y'all, leave me alone. I'm going to produce the content that I want to make. If you ask me a question, it doesn't mean I'm going to respond. I might respond, I might not, but like at the end of the day, I have my own life. I have my own, journey. TikTok is not my life. I'm not going to stress myself out over these things. So yeah, that was a hard boundary I had to.
So going through that and kind of limiting your exposure a little bit to the DMs and whatnot, to kind of like connecting with people in that way, because it was overwhelming, right?
You're right.
Kind of forced you to kind of look more did it help you like look inwardly to kind of address or I guess, did it help you look inwardly and then help you move better, like parsing out like a better path forward? Does that work?
Yeah, that's a very good way to put it. And I don't think I'm going to go off on a tangent on this one.
Okay.
It did help me realize that because my TikTok internet fame came so quickly, I didn't really know how to handle it. But I realized my mental health is number one. I'm not responsible for anyone else's emotions. So it became easy for me to make the decisions about, I'm not going to respond to this. I'm not going to respond to that or this or whatever, because I get tagged in things very frequently, each and every day. And I've even had people get upset with me for not responding to them. And I've had to draw that line. Like, I don't care. I have my own life. My life is not TikTok. My life is not social media. I have kids. I have a soon-to-be wife. I have a house to take care of. If you want to get upset about me not responding, then so be it. So it was a lesson for me to learn how to prioritize my actual personal life over my social media life. And it's not something so many people had or enjoyed. But at the end of the day, it's a necessary decision that I had to make for the sake of my own mental health. Yeah,
and it's actually kind of the opposite like the opposite way of looking at the sword, because the sword it is empowerment, right? It's self empowerment, and in some ways, it becomes its own symbol for empowering others, because it's like, hey, I have a sword now, right? Like I'm wielding my sword. Everyone can see it. It's kind of like back in just a quick history lesson. The French nobility were known as people of the sword, right? They carry the sword. That's why back in before the French Revolution occurred, you had the nobles of the robe and the nobles of the sword. There it is. And the nobles of the robe were your bourgeoisie and whatnot. And so, this idea of carrying a sword is kind of like it's a status symbol in some ways. It's a symbol like in this context, it's like, hey, I've made myself who I am today. I'm empowered by what I've made, but I'm also like, it's like you're in. It's interesting because you're in a few different realms almost. Like you're forging yourself. Like you're in this part of your life where you're back in the forge. You're trying to forge another sword because the sword that you have, it's still there. You still have it. Is kind of not the right sword anymore. But you're still using you're still using what you have at the moment to move forward. Maybe you made a small sword, like a small dagger, or a knife, like you had to kind of get started on TikTok, and all of a sudden it's like, this is a dagger, this is not a claymore with a long reach.
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty accurate. The first several videos I made on TikTok were not atheist related.
Yeah.
They were really more like funny skits revolved around, or some that revolved around me being a stay-at-home dad with 4 kids.
Yeah.
But it was my atheist response that got all the attention. And I've since I've actually gone against the atheist TikTok community, and I've said, hey, by the way, and I know this is how this is going to sound. I say this as modestly as I can. I am by far the most popular atheist content creator on TikTok, by far. But
the stats show it.
Yeah, but that's all by accident. It's not something I tried to do, and I say that as modestly as I can. But I have come against the atheist community on several occasions, saying, hey, stop making atheism the core part of who you are. Like, there is so much more to you than the fact that you're an atheist. Like, I'm an atheist with a bachelor's degree in biblical theology. That's interesting. That's pretty rare. You don't find many people like that. You know what else I am? I'm also a stay-at-home dad with full custody of his kids. You know what else I am? I am a liberal-leaning infantryman in the army who has been to Iraq. I'm a huge nerd. I'm a craftsman. I make things. I make knives. There's so much more to me than just I'm an atheist.
Yeah, I agree.
And I've spoken out against that. And since I've done that, I've seen other atheists come out and say, hey, here's my Lego collection. Like, awesome. Tell me about your Lego collection. Or, hey, I love King Kong. Here's my King Kong collection. Awesome. Tell me about your King Kong collection. Like, the fact that you're an atheist is not, that should not be who you are. That should not be your core identity. There's so much more to you than that. Tell me about your hobbies. Tell me about your interests. You're an atheist, cool. I don't give a shit. What else do you have to offer?
Yeah. And
at least on TikTok, I have noticed a shift in that. Because I'm, of course, friends with people on the Atheist Roundtable and other atheists, and I've noticed that since I've said those things, some of those atheist content creators have said, hey, here's my PC setup. here's my Minecraft server. Here's my whatever else. Here's the things I like to cook. I like to paint. Here's the paintings I've made. Cool. I think people should, if you're willing to expose yourself as an atheist, you should be willing to expose yourself as an artist or as a nerd or as a computer or hacker or whatever.
I guess there's something there that I kind of want to dial in on. I think it's almost kind of like a reoccurring type of thing as well, right? It's one of those things I'm kind of picking up on. Okay, so you made your life was a sword. Like so far, like you have a sword. You've made it. You have there's a procedural flaw in it. It's warped or whatever that case may be, right? Like there's something something happened and it didn't go right. But it's almost like when you like there's I love how you started talking about it, because like normally I'll play this a little bit. Hang on, I gotta find my mouse again. I play this. And you like literally like we see this, I am, but really like we are all like a person is all of these things combined.
Yeah,
they are every single one of those things. And I think that it's almost like if you put too much into one little bucket, too much emphasis on one bucket, your sense of connectedness falls apart. The sense of who you are falls apart.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. Mm-hmm. You shouldn't focus the core of your identity on one thing. Like everyone has multiple facets of who they are as a person.
So then that leads to the next question is like, let's maybe explore this idea of how we can create at least the best that we can. And it's not going to be perfect at any given point, but it's a better state of being. Create one, like a sword that integrates all the aspects of our personality as much as possible.
I think it's a process of trial and error. And I'm by no means a master of this.
Yeah, I mean it's fine. Like none of us are, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. But at the end of the day, if you want to be your own weapon, your own person, the person that you have forged through the mechanisms of your life and your experiences, do what you want to do. Don't feel pressured to produce a certain brand. Do what you want to do. Your audience will come to you. Don't appeal to an audience. Just do what you want to do. And then people will be drawn to that. Because if there's one thing I've learned about my TikTok fame or my internet fame is that people are drawn to authenticity. I've gotten so many comments saying, like, you seem like such a genuine person. You're authentic. And I take pride in that. Like, yeah, I'm not a character. I'm not fulfilling some sort of role. Like, if I want to make a video about atheism, I will. If I want to make videos about my cats, I will. If I want to make videos about the wooden sword I made, I will. Be who you are. And people who enjoy that will come to you. That's what the internet as a whole, as I've experienced, appreciates the most. Genuine people. Be who you are. And even when I am going through something, like the other day, I was like, I haven't slept all night because I have insomnia. I also have ADD and depression and PTSD, and I have this medication for this. And I don't know what to do. And that got a lot of attention because people appreciate when people are vulnerable, when you're willing to let yourself out there. People are tired of a character. everyone on the internet wants to portray themselves as this person who has it all together.
Yeah, very rarely.
Yeah, but but there's a niche sort of people who want to know who people genuinely are, unfiltered, and that's kind of who I am. Like, if I'm depressed, I'll make a video saying, "Hey guys, I'm really going through something today. You may not see a lot of videos from me today, but I'm just struggling with this." And I get a lot of people saying, encouraging things to me. And it seems like that's what people appreciate, is authenticity above anything else.
It's almost like creating this, like, a beacon in some ways. Like you're kind of like, hey, like I'm something that's authentic in a world that's clearly in some ways kind of sedated, I think. Not to get too metaphysical, but you got to wake up from it. And you want to find some of these hard things and these, like, for me, and we'll get into this a little later, like, I can't stand talking about leadership sometimes. The reason why I can't stand talking about leadership is because it's all rainbows. Hell no, it's not. But we'll get into that in a minute, right? Like,
sure.
We'll get into that. I think it's really interesting because like it's almost like in this so far, like it's bad sword for you. Like, it didn't fit right. It's not really usable. It's really dull. It's more like a blunt weapon than anything. And quickly, like you're in the forge, but you also made something small, and then that small thing turned out to be Arya's dagger from freaking Game of Thrones that kills the Night King and makes you popular on TikTok. Pop reference. Anyway,
I appreciate that reference.
Yeah, see, there you go, right? And sometimes you just don't know what's going to happen with those things. So we'll go ahead and transition into the pen, and we'll start talking about what the pen is.
All right.
All right. So we started talking. We've talked about your life so far. Not a great sword. Okay. Little dagger, little Valyrian steel dagger that slays the Night King. Makes you immensely popular. You're like the many face person, but completely genuine because Arya, she turns away a little bit. She's like the House of, what is it, 1,000 Faces. She sits there and says, I'd rather be this person because I'm a Stark. And versus being a fake person from person to person to person. And so I think that's really interesting. And from the pen perspective, right? Like, the pen is legacy in a lot of ways because it's what you're writing. It's also what will be written at the very end, right? So like if you kind of look at it this way, I guess the initial question that I would ask is, your life were to end, what do you want people to write about you?
That's a great question. And I think it ties into what we were just talking about, is authenticity. There's so many people, especially in the age of social media and the internet, there's so many people pretending to be something that they're not. There's so many people pretending like they have it all together. They have all the answers. They're happy. But those who are genuine, who are saying, hey, today I'm happy, I'm in a good mood. The next day, hey, I'm struggling. I'm very depressed this day. The next day, I didn't get a lot of sleep. The next day, hey, I got a great night's sleep. I'm happy again. I think that is what will set you apart, is being authentic. Stop putting on a mask. Stop putting on a facade. I think that is the legacy, is being authentic when everyone else is pretending.
Determine how, like, if I were to read Captain Dadpool's story, right?
Mhm.
20, 30, 40 years. Let's just go 2,000 years after your death, and that now you're a myth, and we don't know how many different Captain Dadpools there were because it was a popular name. How can I tell you're authentic?
I could say you could tell I was authentic when I'm transparent about the days that I'm doing well and the days I'm not doing well.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's some days where I'm like, I got a good night's sleep. I feel good today. I'm gonna produce positive content. And some days I'll be like, I'm feeling very down today. You might not see a lot of videos for me today because I need to take a mental health day. That's what people would look at my content and see and determine that I'm a genuine, authentic human being. I'm not someone who has it all together. I'm not someone who has all the answers. I'm struggling through life just like everyone else is. Yeah.
Mm. That's awesome. And yeah, I mean, it's awesome that we get to. I personally, I take the position of it's awesome to struggle versus not to struggle. At some level, it sucks, but at least we grow. I think.
Like,
go ahead.
There's one like Christian content creator who always seems like upbeat in all of his videos. I think he has more followers than I do. He's like, praise God, this blah 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 blah, and then at the end of his video, he's just like and subscribe. Like he's always seems up and he's a character. That's all he is. He's not his true self. He's just portraying a character of someone who has it all together, and it's not who he really is. But I think at the end of the day, like people appreciate authenticity above credulity. I don't know if that was the right word to use.
But authenticity over fakeness. I mean,
yeah, really exactly. Because he's playing a character. He's not being himself. He's portraying something that everyone hopes to be.
Yeah, I guess what I would ask is, because I think a common criticism here would be something like, well, you don't want to overshare stuff. So I guess where do you kind of see that line as far as oversharing and we write the history book of Captain Dadpool and it says write whatever thing that you don't want people to remember you for completely. The most embarrassing moment of your life, and it has no bearing. It has no bearing on anything. So, like how do we prevent oversharing? And
I see what you're saying. That's a very good question. There's a lot of things in my past that I do not put on social media. Case in point, my ex-wife or my kid's mother. I don't talk about her on social media because no one needs to know that shit. That's between me and her and my kids. And there's a lot to say there, but it doesn't need to be on the internet. No one needs to know that shit. But what I will say is, hey, today, this is how I'm feeling. The next day, this is how I'm feeling.
No.
So just like being honest about where you are at that present time. And maybe you can say like some things about your past, but I definitely don't go into detail.
Okay.
Because
that's fair.
The internet is forever. So I don't talk bad about my kid's mother because it's on the internet and it's forever. And it's not the whole story. No one's going to understand the whole story. So I just don't talk about that part at all.
Yeah.
I just say hey, yeah, like, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. I was picking you up. Go ahead. My bad.
I'm just saying like I'll talk about how I am today. and the next day I'll talk about how I am that day. I'm not going to talk about what happened in the past. What happened 2 years ago or 3 years ago is irrelevant to how I feel today. No one needs to know that. It's nobody else's business. I don't need to share that. That's my own personal stuff. But what I am willing to share is, hey, today I'm in a good mood. Or the next day, hey, I'm not in a good mood.
Yeah.
You know, I keep things in the here and now. I try not to focus on the past or the future. Where I am now is where I'm at, and people seem to appreciate that level of authenticity.
Okay. Yeah, I get that. And one of my biggest concerns is, like you kind of see a comment, like one of the common themes here in this conversation as well is just like we might be using like the hammer, might be using it wrong, right? The sword, we might be using it wrong. And I think almost the pin and the sword of kind of like of the same substance. The reason why I say this is because you can declare war with a pin. You can kill with a pin, even though it's not like directly. Like it's still like you can kill with it. You can do lots of different things that you write, and you have to be kind of very careful how you use that, and how you share your story, and how you still have to do. You have to tread a line between authenticity and just too much information.
Exactly. Like the internet does not need to know about your dirty laundry.
Agreed.
You don't need to put that out there. There's no reason, and I don't put that out there.
Yep, agreed. So we'll go ahead and transition from the pin to our last symbol, which is the crown, and we'll from there we'll wrap it up.
All right.
I don't have a good transition with a crown in it, and I don't want this to go. I kind of skip to kind of what it means, which is self-leadership, self-discipline, also leading others, right? It's, people, that's, I think, one of the hard things in life. And so, what has been the greatest responsibility that you've taken on?
Yeah, I was just reading over your outline. The greatest responsibility I have undergone is advice or guidance for people who have gone through things similar to what I've gone through. And it's difficult because, again, I'm not a trained counselor. But when people come to me for advice, I don't know. I don't always know what to do. I'll either give some like general bland statement, or I'll refer them to a website like Recovering from Religion that has a bunch of resources for you. But it's weird because I never expected to be in this position. And so many people have, asked me difficult questions, and I've made difficult decisions in telling them I'm not going to respond to this. I'm sorry. And I've had people get upset with me. Like, oh, I thought you were this. I thought you were that. And like, you thought wrong. I'm just a guy who makes TikToks. I'm not a counselor. I'm not a professional. You came to the wrong person. Sorry. And that's a boundary I've had to draw with myself, because at one point I did give advice that I probably shouldn't have given. I gave advice that I was not qualified for. And I had to rear back and realize I shouldn't have told that person that. I'm not qualified to say those things. there are better resources I could guide that person to. I'm not responsible for their decisions. So I've had to draw a lot of boundaries with myself. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. Like one of the things that I ask, like, you know, because like when I think of a crown, I think of the taking responsibility and the burden of that responsibility, right? Like it's not easy, and leading, um, it's a very heavy thing to kind of carry around, and I kind of hear it in your voice. It's like, well, I really want to help these people, but like I'm limited, because I'm not. I wouldn't say qualified. Qualified's at some level the right answer, but it's also like it's just I like you need more help, and I can't offer that, but I can at least try and point you in the right direction, have a conversation with you, but I can't give you advice in that regard.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I know I have this cult following on TikTok, but that happened by accident. You have to understand. I didn't intend on that happening. I'm not someone who can answer all of your questions,
Yeah.
but there's so many people who expect me to be able to do that. So it's a really weird position I found myself in. And I'm by nature an empath. I will sacrifice every bit of my mental health in order to help you as much as I can, and that's just kind of my nature. And at some point, I had to say, okay, I need to stop doing this, because like one person would send me a laundry list of questions. I would sit down and spend hours typing out on my phone, because for some reason you can't respond to direct messages on your computer where you can use a keyboard. I would just spend like way too much time like ticking away on my phone, ignoring my kids, ignoring the chores I had to do around the house, responding to these questions. And I was like, okay, this is not healthy. I'm not responsible for these people's mental health. I'm not qualified to give these kind of answers. I have to set these boundaries for myself. So that's something I've had to learn the hard way, I guess.
Yeah, it's almost like I can just kind of imagine you being a team lead or something like that, and you're that guy who's going to go above and beyond, you know, in the like being that 11 bang bang, fire team leader right there, or even probably a squad leader, depending on what's going on. Trying to make sure that you're jumping through hoops for your guys, like and I find that admirable. But the thing is, like, you have to also, like, there's this dual responsibility here. Like, I can only go so hard for so long for other people without having to worry about myself. It's a great source of finding meaning, but it has to be, I think, at some level optimized. And I don't want to. I'm very careful to use the word balanced. I think I'm trying to kind of change that, because I think balanced is not the right word, but optimized might be.
I think balance might be a good word.
The reason why is because I see balance as a system, right? So like a system of things that are helping you propel forward a little bit. And so maybe I'm overthinking it.
I think I see what you're saying.
Yeah, and so like you want to enable it, but you also have to restrict it and put a constraint on it, because if you don't do that, then you're going to hurt yourself, or like you'll hurt someone else too, because now you're giving burnout. And I see that as really one of those things that have influenced you in a lot of ways. I guess in kind of the same way, right? How did you overcome, or how are you working through this maybe this fear that, oh God, like I should be helping these people, Like, even though I've set these boundaries, like I should be helping these people, and like if I don't help them, something will happen. Do you have that feeling?
Oddly enough, no, not really.
Okay.
Like I don't feel guilt for making that decision, which was part of my fear, is that if I set this boundary, I'm gonna feel guilty for setting that boundary. But I don't feel guilty, because this is something I've had to work towards. Again, something that happened overnight. I've had to convince myself that I'm not responsible for other people's mental health. I produce what I produce. I say what I say, but it does not make me any sort of authority over anyone's mental health or whatever. So I want to say, like, I'm very glad that I made that decision. It was a hard decision for me, but I'm proud of myself for making that decision, and I have no regrets.
Okay. That's fine. That makes the most sense to me. And like it's one of those things that sometimes like you think about it, or I think there's a sense of fear in a lot of different ways when it comes to leading, right? Because like you're like, well, if I just do this all the time, then like, how am I helping them grow? I mean, that could be something else too. You have to, we can talk about it a little bit, because I know like in the Army, and even now, like in the private world, I have to sit here and go, I can't do that. Like I have to empower you to do that. And I have to overcome this cover your ass mentality, right?
Oh yeah. CYA.
Oh man, it's good. I guess in regards to self-leadership and leading others, is there anything you would like to kind of add and on that breath before we kind of transition to your final words?
I would be fine if people would ask me a single question without expectation of me responding. But people would send me a laundry list. Like, people would be like, how do I attain the same level of knowledge that you have? Like, you got to go to college for 6 years and get your degree. Like, what kind of answer? Like, that's literally a question I've gotten several times. How do I know as much as you do? What sources do I? My source is Bible college for 6 years. But if people would ask me one question, not expect a response, that would be fine. But I had so many people just give me this laundry list of questions. That's what sent me over the edge. So I would say, don't be afraid to set the boundaries that you need to set in order to, for the benefit of your own mental health. Sorry, I kind of forgot the original question.
No, you're good. I mean, is this if there's anything you want to add in regards to leadership?
Yeah, that's right.
So,
that's
so
kind of
there's
add.
Huh?
So that's really the only thing I'd want to add is I'd be fine if it was one question, but people like took advantage of that opportunity and expected more out of me than I was willing to give. So be respectful of people's boundaries.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially your leaders. And I would almost say, like, don't, and this is my perspective. And if you want to add in, don't be overly critical of people's like actions and stuff like that, because you never know what's going on.
Yeah, exactly.
Like your leaders are, man.
Yeah, like I had people upset with me for not responding. Like I would give like a short answer to a long question, and they'd be like, oh, okay, you're just giving me the short answer, then that's fine. Like, look, what do you expect from me? This is not my job. I have a life outside of TikTok.
Agreed.
So yeah, what you said, it's very accurate.
Fair. Okay. We've kind of gone through your story and your life so far. You have a pretty, like, I mean, it's just so far, right? And that's the good news. We have a pretty good lifespan. And so we can kind of correct some things and fix some things, and nothing is perfect. And even if somebody was deemed perfect, I don't know who that would be. I mean, other than the religious side of me, which is Christ, which even then I question that a little bit. But I had to. It was just there. It was low hanging fruit.
I can help you with that.
And the thing here that matter, like, I think that matters the most is, like, it's some of the underlying things are, like, you have to kind of make your journey, or you have to make yourself, and it may be hard and it's going to be difficult, and you can't go through people like your family, your friends, mentors can coach you along the way, but they just can't lay it down for you and give you that procedure, because if not, that's a false procedure, and that will lead to it's worse, I think, than a bad material, because you have a bad product at the end regardless. The procedure, I think, maybe even worse. And sometimes things happen, but by being genuine, like, you start to kind of make yourself again, and, like, you're back in the forge. You're sharing your experience. You're trying to work with others, and you're working from a stay-at-home dad perspective. You're doing TikTok and all those other things, trying to I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but normalizing atheism in some regards, in many regards, I would say.
Definitely.
Being there for people and trying to optimize the relationship with yourself and others, which is not an easy thing to do, especially when you take on responsibility and that burden of responsibility. And so, Captain Dadpool, we'll do a quick transition here in a minute. You'll have the final word. Your final word will go to someone who maybe you're watching, maybe is going to watch this sometime in the future, because I'll end up clipping all these little final pieces out and either doing montages or individual videos. And it's for somebody who needs to hear what Captain Dadpool has to say. Something that's going to help them find meaning, something that's going to help them, live a more meaningful life. Well, the floor will be yours, and here in a moment. And what I would like to say is, please like, comment, subscribe, share the video with others. Follow Captain Dadpool if you're not already on TikTok. Follow him on his YouTube channel. Links will be below. Follow the Atheist Roundtable. Follow anyone who comes on this channel, because at some level, like, their stories matter, and it helps us all create meaning in our life. And you have to you just can't do it by yourself. But you still have to forge your own existence in a way. So, without any further ado, we'll go ahead and do the YouTube thing, and then it'll be all you.
All right. All right. So the message I would have for everybody who's listening is, don't be afraid to be yourself. Don't change yourself for the sake of others. Just be who you want to be, in spite of others. And people who appreciate you will find you. It may take some time, but they'll find you. The important thing is you don't compromise who you truly are and who you want to be. That's basically it. Don't adjust your identity for the sake of someone else. Be who you want to be for your own sake. Don't be afraid to draw your own boundaries. Don't be afraid to Express yourself how you want to express yourself. How other people see you is not your responsibility. What is your responsibility is how you see yourself. So be true to yourself. Don't be true to others. What other people think of you doesn't matter. Be who you want to be. Focus on the here and now. And other people will find you and appreciate you for who you are. That's it. That's all I got.